No. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Outside the Box. My name is Elhana Alexis, and you are watching my live discussion, which is called Outside the Box. I try to do it every Wednesday evening. I try to start by 9. So tonight we have another episode. Tonight we are going to be speaking about the electoral reform. Presently, that's one of the very pertinent topics, and I think it's a very important topic because so much is going on with the issue of electoral reform. And presently, we are in the middle of a very active election season, and I believe that is very important for everyone to gather as much knowledge as they can about everything to do with the election process as possible. So the issue of electoral reform is not a new issue, and I'm going to be going through the whole process of where it started and where it is now. So we have been seeing and hearing about electoral reform, and a lot of people don't even know what that is, or some people just repeat things as they hear it and so forth. What we want to do tonight is we want to just speak about those things in a way that we look at the facts and we look at everything that has been going on. So it's very easy to speak and to say things and to say things and assume things and give your perspective or your opinion on a matter. However, the most important thing is being able to look at what's actually going on and look at the facts and being able to sort through the facts and make sense out of all the overload of information that we have available to us these days. So without further ado, I'm going to go straight into what we're going to be talking about today. So we are in the middle of an election season, and a lot is going on, and election reform is one of the most common things that is being said. Um, and it's been going on for a while. So we can see for years now, we've been seeing this in the media. We've been seeing people protesting, we've been seeing people making demands, we've been seeing people really asking for electoral reform. What really is that electoral reform that they have been asking for? And what is the situation, the current situation that is prompting people to ask for a change? So we've been seeing all this for a number of years now. These are pictures of these pictures are very old, years ago, some in 2015, 16, 17, 18. So Dominicans have been protesting for electoral reform, and one of the most important things that they're asking for is the cleaning up of the voters list. Um, and we all know the voters list is the list of people that are registered to vote. So we're just looking at things in the media that we've seen over the years. You see, this is 2018, December 2018. The Concerned Citizen Movement continues to protest for electoral reform, so they have continued. Evangelicals, trade unions support calls for electoral reform. That was in April. Pretty much everyone agrees that we need electoral reform. I think the point of contention is what needs to be changed. And I also believe that most people know exactly what needs to be changed. But some would not like to admit what really needs to be changed, because it might create a situation where they may not have the advantage as they had before. And I'm speaking about the current government. um, I'm sure that changing things the way that we would like to see it would probably not be to its advantage, or it would probably remove the extra advantage that the ruling party has at this time. So it is something that the ruling party will never comply with. All right. So let's just continue. So we had our 3 p.m. carried. RIP UWP for lack of progress on electoral reform. When they blaming each other. UWP reiterates no election without electoral reform. That was in April 2018. However, they're still preparing for the election 2019 or 2020. Um, so it's been a long going fight between the United Workers' Party, which is the opposition, and the ruling government. Now, the United Workers' Party is in opposition. The purpose of the opposition is to ensure that the voice of the people is being heard. So while the government is doing what they have to do in terms of what they think they should be implementing, the role of the opposition is to ensure that the what is being implemented is in the best interest of the people of the country. And so as we should expect, the government and the opposition, they are naturally designed to be at opposing ends most of the time, right? So the opposition is the one that should be picking the government's brain and keeping the government on its toes. So they have to agitate, they have to keep at it until they get what they need. The most important thing is that the opposition needs to have a strategy. An important thing is building the strategy so that they will be able to effect a change and cause the government to do what they want to do. And another thing is that whenever I see the government implement something that the opposition suggested, I see it as success on the part of the opposition. Because if the purpose of the opposition is to represent the people and give the government the ideas that really will touch all of the people and not some of the people, then whenever the government implements something that has been touched or influenced by the opposition, that is a win for the opposition, and it's also a win for everybody. So I just thought I had to put this in there. So let's just continue with the media coverage that we've been having over the years. So we're looking at 2060 now. Linton calls for electoral reform, justice, jobs. So calling for electoral reform. We have DFP leader proposes electoral reform measures. That's not a proposal. It's long after all the proposals from all the different parties. I think this is a kind of a useless Mr. Vital after you disappeared for so long. Where have you been? Anyway, let's just continue with the media coverage. So this is recent media coverage. And let me just check my phone a little bit. This is the recent media. Okay. Just the recent media coverage that. Let me see, what am I doing? Okay, so continue the recent coverage. So I'd like to say hello to Nerissa, Matthew. Thank you. You look lovely, Miss Alexis. Thanks. I remember you, Nerissa. Elsa, good evening. Hello, my most loyal Elsa. Good evening. I can't see who else. Anyway, good evening, whoever else is on, until I can see your name and I can say hello. So I'm just gonna continue. So then we had no voter ID and a bloated list are a recipe for fraudulent election, says member of electoral reform group. So they had an electoral reform group. I'm not too sure how successful that group was because we have still not had any electoral reform. And we're in May, that's May 2019. So we had political parties and public invited to participate in public discussion on electoral forum. That was a complete disaster. May 25th, 2019, a total colossal disaster. Um, Burton says more time needed for electoral reform. We've been talking about electoral reform since 2011. How much more time is needed? Ambassador Greg, what questions need for electoral reform in Dominica? Why are you questioning the need for electoral reform? We need a change. It doesn't have to, electoral reform doesn't have to stick to the entire meaning of what reform is, meaning that as to reform and to make the act, fix the act and do all sorts of different things with the act, or to make a new act. It's not all about that. I mean, when we say electoral reform, we're talking about fixing the system, fixing the electoral system and make it better, make it more of a system that will be level for all parties, whether you're in the opposition or whether you're in government. And not just that, to make the process foolproof, because it is not. It's not foolproof. And that is one of the things that is the main issue in with the electoral reform. So there is a need, and you cannot overlook the need for improving our system. Even if it is a very good system, we do have a very good electoral system in terms of international standards. But the parts that we need to focus on are the parts that we all keep talking about, and we know about it. And so we should not be hypocrite about it based on the party that we support. We should understand that a change and an improvement of our system will benefit everyone. It will benefit the voters. It will benefit both of the parties, as a matter of fact. So it is not something that doesn't exist and everyone claims that it exists. It does exist, and there is a need for it. Electoral reform panel discussion to be held May 2nd. I think that might have been the talk that was postponed, or did we have two talks? Not too sure. Multi-sectoral group to host panel discussion on electoral reform. So that was another one, definitely. So we had a lot of talks. Talk shop. We're talking so much. And we're not doing anything. We have been talking since 2011. We're now in 2019 and we're still talking about electoral reform. That's 8 years of talking. You know, so it's ridiculous. Henderson says no need for electoral reform. He'll always say that. Church, business, civil society leaders lobby for electoral reform. Everyone is lobbying for electoral reform except the leaders and the close supporters of the Labour Party. So everyone sees the need for it except the people from the Labour Party who we understand why they will not come out in public and say that they agree that electoral reform should be put on the priority list. As Stefan rejects Amargo's criticism of Dominica electoral reform record, we don't. PM Skirt blames opposition for delaying electoral reform. So you see, they're blaming each other. He's not doing anything. He's not doing it. He's not doing what he's supposed to do, and then he's blaming the opposition for the delay. Although, what happened, the delay that happened, I mean, this was uncalled for. What happened on that day, it was uncalled for. However, I guess that was the only way they could stop what was going to happen, you know. So it was wrong. And I believe that they should have let it happen so that we can see what exactly they wanted to put into motion, or to see if they really would have gone through it then. And DLP criticizes DLP's recommendations for electoral reform. Everybody's talking. UWP demands electoral reform to participate in parliament. So in 2011, they demanded electoral reform, or else they would not partake in elections. However, in 2014, they still partook. They are still demanding, and in 2019 or 20 or whenever election is called, they are still going to take part. So please don't make empty threats, because anytime you're bluffing and you're making empty threats, it's not going to go down well for you. PM discusses electoral reform with Secretary General of Commonwealth Secretariat. That was in 2011, and a lot of plans came out after that, and we are still at step zero right now. So electoral reform should be on CARICOM meetings agenda. So Hector John, The United Workers' Party wanted that to be an item on CARICOM agenda. But I'm sorry, it cannot be an item on CARICOM agenda because each island's internal and political affairs is the island's internal political affairs. The CARICOM and those things, they cannot get involved in our internal affairs and those things. And secondly, we don't have some people are sitting and thinking, oh, if we get really violent and we probably get some real civil unrest, some big countries, some developed countries going to step in and super us off and demand that the prime minister does electoral reform. They believe that the US is going to step in and come and tell the prime minister, hey, you better do you better give them electoral reform or else. I don't know what else, but they're not going to do that. We do not have any oil. We do not have any other kind of resources that will be beneficial to any of the developed countries, especially the US. So this is something that we are the only ones that can solve our internal problem. And that is the same thing that is going on with Venezuela. A lot of things are happening on the outside, but at the end of the day, the Venezuelans themselves are the ones that are going to have to solve their problem. So we are not going to be able, nobody's going to step in and save us. CARICOM is not going to step in and save us. So we have to save ourselves. Then, dear Pili, they're disappointed in panel discussion. All you can do is talk, pale. You're not doing, anyway. Dominican public has to help update electoral list. Now, the electoral list is something that it is not automatic. So it is not something we don't have chips inside of us that will indicate to the electoral commission or to the electoral voters office or whatever it is that we have been living out of state for 5 years. We do not have any chips inside of us, and it is connected to the voting office that notifies the office that we have died. We're no longer in this earth, and so we should be removed. So people, the onus is on people to inform the office that this and that person has died, and so they will be removed from the office if they are dead. Secondly, if you are living out of the country and you want to remove your name from the list, there is a form that you fill. You make an order. There's an order that you sign and you send it to the office so they can remove your name. Besides that, they cannot just go and remove names on the list. Right? So that's the situation that we have. It's up to the people to help and to ensure that the names on the list match the people that are actually there, especially match the people that are actually alive. So the UWP ready for next general election, but Electoral Commission is not. It's not. Concerned citizen movement to protest outside electoral office. That was that time when they had to. CCM calls for resignation of Electoral Commission chairman. That was in 2018. He's not resigned. Nobody resigns in Dominica. Hillary Shillingford dismisses AG's call to remove certain commissioners from electoral reform. Report says 2014 election was not necessarily fair. Justifies call for reform, Linton says. So the election was free, but not necessarily fair. That is questionable, and it means that there may be a question about it, but there's no proof or there's nothing substantial to prove that anything out of the normal happened. DPSU says civil unrest possible if amendments to electoral laws proceed. So at this point in 2017, May 2017, that was 2 years ago, the government wanted to make some amendments to the electoral laws, but those amendments that they wanted to make had nothing to do with the pleas and with what the people wanted in terms of the voters list. Actually, what they wanted to do was to make it easier for people who are living outside of Dominica to be registered to vote or to stay on the voters list, and to change the act so that it would match that action, because currently that would be as it was that registering or ensuring that people who are living out of Dominica that would be against the acts as they were before. So they wanted to change it so that they would have the legal basis for registering people who are living outside, or actually leaving these people on the list, and to confirming these people who are living outside of Dominica on the list. So this is what was the issue with the amendments that the government wanted to put in place. Linton says opposition asked the PM Skerrit not to introduce bills to amend electoral laws. So 2 electoral commissioners were sworn in then. Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of coverage. There's a lot of talking about it, and nothing is being done. We just talk. UWP6 answers from Electoral Commission. Commission plans for electoral debate. We're debating. We're talking. Parley. Green calls for parliamentary reform, a fixed election date. So now talking about a fixed election date being added to those things that we want changed. Green demands resignation of Alex from electoral reform. All kind of a debris in and out. People want this person to resign and blah blah blah. But yeah, it is a tiring situation of talking and talking and talking. I'm still not done yet. Come home to vote legally, says Linton. Bishop Malzea urges those responsible to ensure free and fair elections. January 2019, even the bishop says that we need to do whatever we need to do to ensure that we have free and fair elections, just as the other men of the clergy and everybody else. The PM Skerrit vows to defend the right of overseas Dominicans to vote. That is one of the things that he maintains the most. Free and fair election. So we just have a lot of talking. CCM to protest against amendments to the election laws. So that's when they protested against the amendments, and it was halted. So these are people living in America outside of the UN building, protesting for electoral reform. And then we had a situation where the leader of opposition went to see different professionals, international organizations such as the Secretary General of OAS, and he made a tweet about Dominica and the reform situation, and he got some backlash from the Prime Minister. And I guess there was some back and forth because he defended the fact that he had a right to say whatever he said, and whatever he said was well within his jurisdiction to say. So it's just been a lot of back and forth of his leader of opposition sending letters, CCM movement sending letters. It's just been back and forth for the past few years. So this is what we have in terms of the media coverage and what we've been hearing about the electoral reform. Now, what we want to see what has been happening for the past how many years, right? So we are going to look at what has been happening for the past so many years. I think this is way ahead of where it should be. Oh shit. Oh man. Okay. I'm just gonna have to go back here. Okay, so this is the last thing. Why is the last first? Okay. Is that the beginning? Okay. Okay, so this is the beginning. What we have here, let me see if I can do something here. One minute, let me just see if I can do something there, because I didn't realize that was like this. Okay, so after we'll just listen to all those things that went on for the past few years, I'm just going to go through a government timeline, an admitted government timeline, a timeline that the government has admitted that they have had milestones. I'm not sure if we could consider all of them milestones or any of them many milestones, since we are still at point zero right now after 8 years. So on June 15, 2011, the commission informed the executive. Wait. There's something before that. Uh, oh man, what happened? Wait. Oh my word. My this. I'm sorry. This got messed up. What? Okay, something's missing. The first one is really missing. I'm not sure why. However, let's continue because I think the first thing was February. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can. What? Oh, sorry. I think I had it there. Let me see. The first point on the timeline was something else. That's not the first one, but I have it written down. So yeah, that was in February. So in February 2011, they decided that they were going to issue national ID cards. So the government decided that one of the things that was really missing in our system was the existence of ID cards for voting. And ID cards, what I think about ID cards, I do support using national ID cards instead of having specific voter ID cards. Why not have a multi-purpose card where a person can be identified for voting and for anything else? Because currently we do not have a national ID card. What we have is a social security card, and there are some people who've never had social security, some people who've never had a job, and now, I mean, most people who've ever worked, they have a social security card, and they can identify themselves even if they don't have a passport. But if somebody has never worked or has never worked formally before, they may not have a social security card, and so it will not be fair for for people to have to use the social security card to identify themselves. If you don't have a passport or something else, you will not be able to identify yourself and you'll not be able to vote. So I believe that a national ID card is a better idea for identification. But I believe that we need to be able to identify ourselves at the polling station with proper identification. So people will vote based on their ID, you know. And currently, when we are registering, it seems that there's no kind of identifying factor or unique, and there's nothing unique being collected in terms of registration. So I was looking at the list. All you see is the name, the address, and the name, the address, and the constituency. So there's no way to know if this is this John Smith or if it's the other John Smith, besides the fact that he once lived at that address. So anybody can come and identify themselves as John Smith, even if that John Smith was born in 2020, was born in 1919. John Smith that was born John Smith that is 18 years old can go and vote as John Smith at that address because his name is John Smith. So we do not have any kind of identifying information in terms on the registration. And so this leaves a big hole for all the makakwi to take place because people cannot identify themselves with a formal ID. And that is a problem. But we do not have to stretch it to make it mean that we need special voters ID. We just need ID. And we don't and the issue is that we don't just need an ID. We need the whole system to change. Starting from the registration, how they register people, and what type of ID that they take, and what type of ID that you have to match with your name. So currently, there's no kind of system. So I think it is less likely to find a John Smith and a John Smith who were born on the same day, right? It's not impossible, but it's less likely to find two John Smiths born in one constituency, um at the in the same constituency, right? So it is less likely for those things to happen. And I don't understand why the last amendment was in 1990 or 1991. Nobody ever, over all these years, nobody has ever thought that we need a proper way to register and identify people when they're registering to vote. That is not something that you realize when your party is not in power. That's something that that's something that we should all do. I'm sure that it's not something that we only now realize, but everybody was happy because it was working for them, and now it's not really working for them. So it's like we gotta should change it. I'm not opposing changing it. We do need to change it, but it's not just about having ID cards. We need to change the whole system so that when we go to register, we register and give information that will identify you. License number, these kinds of things. We need to give some type of information that will identify you. And now the national ID will have a national ID number, and so the national ID number will identify each person. So this is a good alternative to the voter's ID, which would have more purpose than just for voting, right? So this is where I see it. I got carried away talking about the voter's ID. I'm sorry. So we have July 16th, the president requests financing for issuance of the national ID card. We're talking about 2013, Look at this. 2011. We were talking about 2011 when the government decided, okay, we're going to do ID cards. And then in June 2011, the commission told them that it's okay. We're not against national ID cards. It's fine. Go ahead, right? And then on July 16, 2013, that is 2 years after, the president requests financing for the issuance of the administration of national ID cards. August that year, the executive commits to providing financing, right? Then December 9 in that same year, it looks like there was a little bit of momentum. The prime minister, the president, and the commissioner and the commission chair met to discuss the implementation of the national ID card. Then after they met to discuss the implementation of the national ID card, 2 years passed before they made the next step. So December 1, 2015, that's like 2 years after, the cabinet directs that copies of the bill for an act to amend registration of electors act and the related SR and O be sent to His Excellency for information and requesting that he forward copies to the Electoral Commission for its consideration. Right? That was 2015. So that's the model. That's what they were talking about in 2012. That's the model of the national ID that they were going to do, and they did make steps towards it, because I remember having to go. I had to take a day off of work to go and do to take my picture and give them my information for my national ID. I took some hours of work to go to the office, and up till today, we have not seen any of those cards. They opened up, when they said they were going to do the cards, that's when they opened up the downstairs of the registry, that new area they opened downstairs. That's where they were doing it. That's where I went to take my picture. And they said that this new area, that's what it was going to be for the voter registration and for the national ID cards. But since then, nothing really happened with that. I'm still waiting for my card, and I hope when they do whatever they do again, I will have my card still in the system from 20. When was that? I think I went to do mine like early 2014, because I left in March 2014 and I did it just before I left. And so it must have been somewhere in February 2014 that I went to take my photo for that thing. So yes, so they opened that new section for that. Let me see if I can find my way back to where I'm supposed to be. And then we're looking at, I think No, there's something is missing. My stuff got all mixed up. I'm very sorry. I was trying to be so organized and my stuff got so mixed up. I don't even know. Okay, so we are on 2017 right there. Let me see. Let me see. Okay, May. Okay, I think we're on May 2017. Okay, 2015. You know, this 2 years passing every time. 2 years passed on that again, and we ended up on May 2nd and 3rd, 2017. Now the executive author made some authorizations in terms of finances, the provision of finances towards the national ID cards, and we had a sum of 91,000 and change for general staff at the electoral office. Um, then we had 319,000 to employ additional staff, 274,000 to meet the costs associated with clearing the equipment at the port, 162,000 to purchase passenger bus, pay the cost of premium insurance for the bus and maintenance of the same. Why do you need a bus though? For transportation of people all over to come and do their ID cards? A bus? I don't know. I cannot really put the bus. I cannot really put the perspective of get the perspective of the bus. Anyway, the cost 341,000 for cost of confirmation exercise to include public relations and blah blah blah, and rental of property. Then we had 1 million for meeting the cost of traveling to selected cities for confirming overseas-based nationals. So that part of it, you notice that this part was actually implemented, right? Because the Prime Minister has been traveling to confirm the overseas voters. So up till recently, after he made his change with after they made the change to the act, so that they can confirm voters who live outside, he has gone to do that. So does it mean that this money is what has been this money that was allocated, does it mean that it was spent while the Prime Minister has been going out to talk to overseas voters to come down to Dominica to vote Labour? I am trying to, because I'm if that was part of the cost and part of the electoral reform costs, that then it seems it could appear that the financing of his trips outside of Dominica to talk to Dominican citizens about coming home to vote for his party. So you see, that's where the commingling of party funds and government funds creates a problem, and that is where the opposition party ends up being at a disadvantage, and it's a natural disadvantage. It's something that you hardly can avoid. Why? Because the party is in government and they're doing whatever they're doing, and so whatever they're doing is supposed to be like proof that they should stay in office. So they already have this upper hand that they're in there and they can do things. So that's one of the things. So I really want to know if those traveling is based on Labour Party or if it's based on the government doing this overseas-based nationals part of this this plan. I don't know what is that 300 mobile checkpoint units though. May 9th, 2017, Cabinet authorizes and instructs creation of legal instruments on electoral reform. Masaf Sasaye. May 23rd, the executive tables the bills entitled registry of. So that's the bill that they wanted to pass through the House, and the opposition was protesting about it. So I think that was my end. No, there's a September something. You see, my stuff got all messed up, so I have to go and look for where the September thing is. September 7th, Loftus Dura filed an injunction preventing the government from seeking the Parliament's approval on that bill. So they wanted to do that Registration of Electors Amendment Act. And then on September 10, 2018, there was a consultation organized and chaired by the executive at Goodwill Parish Hall in Roseau with all relevant actors on electoral reform. So in 2018, September 2018, they had They had that consultation in Parish Hall. May 2019, they had a debate or a panel discussion about it, and it's just been talking and talking. So as we can see, since 2011, the government has just been talking and talking and talking and talking about it, and they have not really been doing any actions. They're bluffing. It's like they're bluffing. They're saying I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, but they're not doing anything really. So they have this as a list of milestones. I don't see this as a list of milestones. I see that as a list of, just bullshitting us and making us believe that they're doing something about it, but they're not doing anything about it. Right? Okay, so let's look at what the opposition is asking for. What? Okay. Let's look at what is going on. Okay, let me see. Let's see who's on here with us. Why can't I see? Okay, let's see who's on here with us. We have a few people online right now, but nobody's saying anything. Why is nobody saying anything? Okay, so there's no messages at the moment. Let's continue. Why is this not showing? Opposition. Let me see. Okay. Okay, so we're in action now. All right, so I just wanted to look at what the United Workers' Party's reform proposal looks like, what they're asking for. Um, they're really not asking. When you look at it, they're really not asking for much, and it's really just a general improvement of the whole system, and I think that is basic. I think everyone understands the needs, and everyone understands that we need to make those changes. But as I said, people, based on their political affiliations, they choose whichever one that suits the party of choice. So let's look at the United Workers Party reform proposal, and to me, they're not. It's nothing much. It's nothing over the moon, and I can tell you one thing. I can tell you that what they're asking for, you do not even need to change the act in order to do it. What you need to do is, if the government just actually enforces the act as it is, and enforce it efficiently, then half of those problems will be gone. And actually, not even half, maybe more than, maybe 90% of those problems will be gone by just enforcing what is already there. So let's look at what they want. So one, an accurate register of voters. And as I was saying, we need to have a better way of registering voters, where they have identifying facts about them that is unique, more than just a name and an address. So they need to collect the date of birth, or some national ID number, some kind of identification number that identifies that person, so nobody else will be able to vote using this person's name, right? So that would take care of the voters ID, or let's say the national ID card would take care of that. However, as I said, just having a national ID card wouldn't take care of the whole problem, because the people who are already registered in there without any sort of ID or any sort of identifying facts, they are already registered. So we cannot change, only put it for only new voters. I mean, it would be good to put it for new voters, right? But it will not have any effect if we just put it for the new voters. What we need to do is we need to re-register everybody and use the better system to get the use a better system where we can actually identify people using more accurate information, such as the date of birth, the national whatever social security card, passport number, some type of ID that you present when you register that can identify you on the voting day. So these are the things that they're talking about in terms of accurate register of voters. But I have to say as well, accurate register of voters also covers the people who are dead and the people who have migrated. Now, it is people who have passed away are supposed to be removed from the list, right? So um, the the community, the communities need to keep a record of who dies and so forth. And I know the community councils do keep record of people that are born and people that are dead, because some of the village councils, they are the ones responsible for giving some sort of document when someone dies for their for the death certificate. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think I remember talking about that in one of my earliest shows, where we were talking about the community councils having some sort of document that they give you. Because when I worked at the registry, I remember a lady having some problems, and she came directly after the husband died. She came directly to the registry to get a death certificate, and she was advised to go to a village council first and get some sort of something. I'm not sure. I still don't know what it is, but they do need so the village councils, they do have some sort of record of who is being born and dying in the constituency. And so I believe that the constituency, the registering officers or whoever, whatever they're called, in that constituency office, they should be keeping track of who dies in the constituency and getting their death certificate and getting their names out of the list. Also, if you have anybody who is dead, or you are responsible also to ensure that that person's name gets off the list. So if your mother died 20 years ago and the name is still on the list, it is your responsibility to go there and have your mother's name removed from the list, so that you will avoid anybody going to vote and claiming to be your mother. Since so I wonder if Mapampu's name is still on the list. Or if it ever was. Anyway, so an accurate register of voters. This is not asking for much. This is what we're supposed to have. We're supposed to have an accurate register of voters. So another thing is people who migrated. When you migrate, I mean, a lot of people, they migrate they illegally. They get a visa and they go away and they stay on the visa. They cannot come back until maybe they get the whatever, or if they get deported, they get back. So a lot of people, they have kind of migrated but not legally migrated. And so I believe that everyone should have a right to vote somewhere. And even if somebody is living overseas for 5 years or for 3 years, there's no telling that the person is going to stay forever. The person is still a citizen. There's no telling that the person is a citizen of another country or is registered to vote in another country. So they're probably reserving their rights to vote in their country, because a lot of Dominicans pay attention and follow the development of Dominica, and a lot of Dominicans actually play an active role in the development of the country. So that a lot of us also agree that this specific part of it, where people should be residing in the country for 5 years, this is something that should be removed. And they're not even saying it as one of the things that we need to put on the reform, but I think it is one of the things that we need to reform. We need to remove that part about living in the island for 5 years, and we need to erase that and allow people to vote. As once your name is on there and you're not dead, you can vote, right? I really believe that's how it should be. Unless you decide personally, you choose to remove your name from the voters list, you remove your name from the voters list. But besides that, I believe that every single Dominican who registered to vote, unless you're dead, you should still remain on the list. However, the way the law is right now, if you have been out for 5 years or more, then you should be removed from the list. So people who are living outside of Dominica for over 5 years, and a lot of people who have no plans of returning to Dominica to live or to work or to vote, I think these people should send in, because I believe you have to send. They can't just remove you from the list, and even if they know that you have been living outside of Dominica, they can't just remove your name from the list. You have to send an order to remove your name from the list. I believe there's a form. If you look at the act or the law, at the bottom of it, they will have attachments of the different forms for the different things, the registration form and so on. They have this form for you to remove your name on the list. So I also believe that unless you actually put this form in and say that you're not there, they cannot prove that you're not on, you don't live on the island. I when we talk about not living on the island, I can there's I visited Dominica in December last year, and when I was at the airport, at the customs officer asked me, so how long will you be staying? I said, well, I'm coming to my home. I don't have any. I don't have a limit on how long I can stay at my home. He's like, oh well, I see you living overseas. I said, I don't live overseas. He said, yeah, because I see you live overseas. I said, how do you know I live overseas? I live in Dominica, and I told him my address. And then he was like, but you've been outside for you. The last time you left Dominica was like 2 years ago. I was like, yes. So I live in both places. And then he was like, okay, but in some places you if you're in the country for more than 6 months, something like, if you're in the country for 6 months, for less than for if you're visiting, then it's about 6 months or whatever. I say, yeah, I know that, but I live in both countries. I'll always live in Dominica. So I told him, and then that's how we ended on a note, like, agree to disagree, because you're not going to tell me I don't live here. I live here. I have not been here in the past 2 years, but I live here. I'm not living outside of Dominica long enough to say I don't live in Dominica. I can change my mind anytime. I think about it all the time. So it's like you cannot tell somebody, you cannot really prove that somebody is living outside of Dominica. And yes, you can look at their passport or whatever it is, but the fact that somebody comes in and goes, or the person could be living in Dominica, traveling to work outside, and living in Dominica. Some people live in Dominica and they have green cards in America. They live in Dominica, but they residents of the US. So they live in both places, don't they? So we live in both places, right? So those people who live in Dominica and they have the green card and they go back and forth and back and forth every 6 months, they go back and forth. Are you going to tell these people that they're not living in Dominica? No, but they are US residents and they are Dominican residents. So you cannot really, So that's one of the things that you cannot really prove. These are Dominicans, and Dominicans are living in Dominica. If I come to Dominica, I live in Dominica. That's my country. So don't ask me my address, or don't ask me how long I'm gonna stay in Dominica. It's my country. I live here. You know. So yeah. So we just want to. They just want. We're just looking at an accurate register of voters. Voter identification cards, as I said, a national ID cards will suffice. We just need something to identify people, so people will be able to prove who they are at the polling station, and we will minimize the incident of any fraudulent voting. Let me see again. Um, Let me see who else is on again. Okay, I see some people on there, but I can't see the names of who is there. But hello, if you're listening, I appreciate you being here, and we still have a few more things to talk about, and I do hope that I can keep your attention. So that's the second thing, voter identification cards. That's the second thing. Third, the rule of law, the enforcement of the provisions of our electoral laws against bribery, treaty, impersonation, illegal voting, and election offense in general. So that is just like enforcing the laws that are actually there. So it's nothing new. It's just to enforce the laws that are there, because there are laws and there are conditions such as bribery and treating, and there are penalties for those offenses. And so we just need them to be enforced. And one of the biggest problem with Dominica, and one of the biggest creators of all problems in Dominica, is the fact that we do not have enough respect for rule of law, and rule of law is really weak in Dominica. We don't enforce laws and we don't follow laws. And a lot of things, the change, we don't need a lot of changes. They are not like we need changes or we need new laws or new rules. We have them on the books, but they're not being enforced. And that is the problem. And that is one of the problems with the electoral process, where we have laws on the books and they're not being enforced. So that is just an enforcement of the law. Voting by electors living overseas, right? So that's another thing we want to be able to lawful facilitation of registered eligible voters living overseas to vote in general elections in Dominica. I am of the strong belief that, as I said, people who live outside, all Dominicans should be allowed to vote. Whether you stay outside of Dominica for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, you should be allowed to vote as long as you're a citizen of Dominica. Um, so that part of there should not be no the legality and illegality of voting should only be based on the fact that you're registered to vote or you're voting as who you say you are in the right polling station where you're supposed to be voting. That's where I see about legal voting overseas. I believe that voting should be made possible when you live overseas. We may not have the system or we may not have any kind of system, or we may not have the capacity to facilitate overseas voting, like remote voting, people for voting from overseas. But it should be something where even if you are living in Dominica for 20 years, you can choose to come down to Dominica and vote. If you're in Dominica during election time, then you are free to vote as a Dominican citizen. So the problem comes when people start getting paid to vote. People are being appeased. People are being given items, money, and so forth, and asked for to vote them. So that is a problem, because it may not be so much of a big problem because you don't know who people are voting for. If even if someone gives you something and tells you to vote them, you don't need to vote them. But we need these people to know that there are rules and they should not be offering anything. It should be something that people are afraid to do, that offer you something to vote for them. And then we can see that this is a culture of the current government. We can see that it is a culture and it is acceptable because of the way that the Prime Minister talks. The Prime Minister will say things like, if you worked NEP or you work in NEP, how can you not vote? And when he says that, he doesn't mean how can you not vote, because I'm sure he doesn't expect an NEP person to vote for EWP. What he's saying is, if you have NEP, if you have worked NEP, how can you not vote for him, for Labour Party, because Labour Party helped you when you couldn't get the job? But in fact and in truth, what really happened was that Labour Party, because the Labour Party has failed to improve the economy of Dominica enough for people to be able to create and find jobs, then the Dominica Labour Party had to create NEP so that they can, buffer the unemployment rate in Dominica, because the economy cannot support the jobs of NEP, and so the government has created that program in order to buffer the effect of the lack of achievements, the lack of efforts in terms of making the economy healthy and making it suitable for business. So do not tell a young person who is faced with a society that you created, is faced with an economy that you are controlling, that they should vote for you because they are given uh, given some sort of social help through a job where they are being underemployed. So it's not pity, it's not supposed to be a charity. It's like, and then he's saying things like the people who are getting new houses and the people who were helped after Maria and so forth, these people, don't tell me you get houses or whatever and you're not going to vote. He's expecting these people to vote for him. So the even in the way that he talks about those things on a general to the general public, and on the on the right on the platform, on the political platform, he says those things, so you can actually see and understand that he is actually expecting people to vote based on what they have received personally from the government. which is wrong and which shows the culture of paying people or giving people this or that and tell them to vote me. And that is the culture. That's the culture. So this is something that is a serious problem in Dominica, and we need to change it. Also, media access for the opposition. I guess they're talking about, because in any state, in any country, which there should be equal accessibility to all government-run stations, to government-run media outlets, to all the parties. Um, I believe, but in that respect, I believe that is always a problem. That has always been a problem in Dominica in terms of the Dominica Broadcasting Station, because that's really the only national media outlet. There's always been a problem in terms of that for DBS, because DBS has always been politically controlled, because usually whoever the prime minister, the ruling party, usually puts someone as head, based on their political affiliations. So the person at the head of DBS is usually someone that is handpicked by the ruling government. And so there's always this sort of, although it's supposed to be impartial, there's always this little thing where it may not be 100% equal, which it should be. And then there's only one nationally controlled station. So what we have in Dominica, we have Q95, which is opposition radio station. We have Kyrie FM, which is government radio station, and then we have DBS, which is controlled by the government. And so we have labor rights, we have people who support the government being at the head of the DBS, and so there may be some sort of unfairness, which I'm not saying there is, but there may be a possibility of that. But I'm not saying that the people are not professional enough to, yeah, because I have heard and opposition things on the radio. I don't see any difference between opposition items and government items being aired on DBS. I don't know what it is like now, because I don't listen to DBS unless I'm listening to a live broadcast of something. So I don't know, not know, but I know before, although I couldn't see it, but people always used to talk. It's something that people always talk about, but I don't really see it, because I mean, if you're putting a political advertisement, you still have to pay for it. If you are if you want to have a political, I'm not sure I'm not sure, I don't know. So I guess we just need to know that both the opposition and the government will get equal chances. I mean, the candidates of the opposition parties will get equal opportunities to present themselves on the radio, and to put their stuff on the radio, and to get people to know them and so forth on the radio and on the TV, or whatever is on GIS and whatever it is. So I guess that is a concern. So all we're really talking about is the GIS and the DBS, because all the other stations or whatever are privately owned. So there was a time a few years ago when Kyrie FM was an opposition station, where Kyrie FM was just about against the government, you know. And then since the owner turned a Labour Party supporter, things have changed, and he has turned the station is now considered a pro-government station. So I guess it changes as people change. So this media access for the opposition, so I guess that is one of the things that they're looking for, and also campaign finance reform. They need, and we all agree, we all know, and based on international standards, there should be some type of control on campaign finance. Political parties should have to declare their finances. They should have to declare the sources of their finances, so that we know who's funding their campaigns. Right, so this is something that we need to work on. We are truly acting as third world countries, because by now we should have made some of those changes. We should have made them long time ago, but sometimes people in government tend to have that third world mentality, meaning they want to keep the country in a third world kind of situation, because um, they do not want people to be able to do as they should. They want to keep you trapped. They want to keep you, they want to keep things away. They want to keep opportunities away. We should be able to know where the campaign finances are coming from for all of the parties. The government, the Dominican Labour Party should be declaring all its assets and all its funds, where they're getting the money from and so forth. But since we have a situation in Dominica where we cannot even get our public officers to publicly declare their assets. We cannot get a true declaration on that. We cannot get an integrity in public office to actually operate as it's supposed to operate in Dominica. That is something that I don't even know. I don't even know how we're going to be able to enforce that. I think we might end up doing a reform and putting that in it and putting that on the books, and then we're still not going to be getting the information from them, because we're still not getting the information from Skerrit's, from the Prime Minister's personal finances. We still do not know the answers to all the questions that have been asked about the Prime Minister's mismatch, the mismatch between the Prime Minister's assets and his salary. So how are we even going to find any control on that, which is needed? So and then, I mean, if the United Workers Party has been asking for that, and then, I mean, if you want that to be one of the things that is implemented, I think maybe they should set an example. Because if I want to show that this is what we should be doing and I'm okay with it, we are fine with it, or party's fine with it, and this is what we should be doing in Dominica, I would do it. I would actually declare my funds and where I'm getting my funds from. Or probably they're afraid because the government might be in a position to affect the funds. I don't know. But this is something we really need to look at, all those things. And it's nothing that is out of the way. There's nothing extra that you have to do. Most of it is just enforcing the laws that are actually there. So that's number 6. Is there 7? Yeah, and that's it. That's all. So the proposal is not anything big. It's not anything big and scientific and intellectual. It's just normal. It's just what we need to do. It's just what we are lacking, and what's actually written there. We want it to be implemented. So we're not asking for much. And I'm not saying we, as a part of the opposition, I do not support any of Dominica's political parties, because I believe neither of them is capable of taking Dominica from point A to point B at that present state, or at that present time, right? We have tried for 20 years. Dominica has been where, okay, for example, right? You see how badly Maria destroyed Dominica, and you see in a matter of a year or 2 years, that happened in 2017, right? In a matter of a year and a half, Dominica is right back where it was in terms of infrastructure, almost in terms of infrastructure. Where it looked like we would have to take a good 10 or 20 years for Dominica to get back where it was before. But it looks like we are almost there. It's just a matter of the economy. The biggest problems that we have, the one problem that we really have right now in terms of the Maria and the effects that we still have, is what it has done to the economy. So, and then the thing is, we have always had a problem with the economy. The economy has been suffering for years. So for the entire 20 years, the economy has been suffering. So what Maria did to it was just put it a little further back, right? But besides that, so what I'm trying to say is that we have made a lot of, if you look around in Dominica, you'll see, okay, we can say, okay, 20 years ago, the roads were not that nice. 20 years ago, there was not a bridge here. 20 years ago, there was not that building there. We didn't have a stadium. But at the end of the day, those things are things that can be built in a year or two. These things are things that can be built in no time. But at the end of the day, these things have been repaired. But Dominica is still going to be in the same economic position that it was, you know? So if we could do all that in a span of a year and a half, then all those 20 years that we've been doing all those superficial things we've been doing for the past 20 years that has not had any effect on our economy, all those things that we've been doing, it's not worth so much, because it can be wiped out in a matter of hours, and then the economy is still where it is. So it's like we are busy building bridges and fixing roads and those things, and at the end of the day, we still don't have enough jobs for our young people leaving school. We still don't have enough jobs for people who are going to study and coming back with for nothing. We still don't have any, and it's not just the coming back and look for a job. We still don't have a kind of thriving economy for you to start businesses and for you to thrive, for businesses to thrive. So it's not a matter of being able to build a bridge. It's a matter of doing things that will last longer than a bridge. And this is where we are lacking. We are lacking most of the things that the government can boast about is concrete, things that can be built and broken quickly and repaired. But tell me about the economy. Tell me what industry, what new industries have been flourishing over the past 20 years. Tell me what industry has been flourishing. Tell me a new industry that opened up, you know. And we had the opportunity to do to get an early start on the cannabis industry, and we are just simply not paying any attention. I mean, this is crazy. So yeah, let me not get carried away, because I think I'm over and over now, and so let me try to get to a point. Right, so I wanted to look at Dominica law, actual Dominica laws that we want to. But the thing is really that we not really need a reform of the laws. What we need is we need enforcement of the laws that we already have. We need proper enforcement. And there's one other thing I kind of have a problem with. I believe I do not want to believe, and I hate the fact, and I hate the thought that in Dominica, we cannot have any commission, or we cannot have a commission or any sort of body that is totally apolitical, totally no political bias. Sometimes people think that putting representatives from both parties makes it biased, makes it what do you call it, fair, or makes it equal. But I believe that we should have people that will make decisions not based on the party, or not coming in here to support the party. Because at the end of the day, when we have two commissioners chosen by the opposition, we have two commissioners chosen by the government, and then we have one commissioner who is chosen by the president, that was chosen by the prime minister. We actually have three people in there who are in support of the government, and we have two people who are so we have the same kind of natural disadvantage that we have in the House of Assembly, as we have in all those commissions that we start. We try all those commissions and we put the same thing. We have the same thing. Is it because we do not have any independent thinking Dominicans that will be able to go in there and not think about party, or not represent any party? I do not believe that the election commission should have anybody that is party affiliated in there. I do not believe that there should be that two and two. I do not believe that they should have that two for workers and two for government in there. Yes, I know that the possibility of people probably being all supporting one party is higher. But what we have is we have expectations when we put people in positions like that, and we expect them to be non-political, and we expect them to not have any political bias. We are giving them the expectations. These are the expectations that we have of them. But when we put them on the basis of, okay, these are the two workers, these are the two labor rights, these are the two government side, these are the two opposition side, we're actually putting them in on the premise that they're going to be supportive to their party, and there should be no sort of bipartisanship in the electoral commission, and it should not be something that is encouraged or accepted or acknowledged It should be something that we expect people to be non-political and not have any political. We expect people to be able to put their political biases aside, right? And it means that, and if we cannot find that kind of thing, if we cannot have a commission with that kind of expectation, that means that we have a serious problem. That means we're lacking principles in this country. We're lacking principled professionals in this country. If we cannot have any commission where we just have 10 people or 5 people or just 4 people on a commission and you need them to be of two parties, that shows that we are at a level where political bias is accepted and encouraged in decision making. That's what it shows. We should be able to put these people in a position and expect from them that they would be able to put their political affiliations or their political whatever it is aside in order to do the job that they have to do. And so that's what I think about the Electoral Commission and the makeup of the Electoral Commission. I don't think that there should be like two-side thing in there. So let me see where's there. Oh, that was about, I know what you're talking about. That was about the immigration. Yeah. All they need to say is welcome back. I know, right? Welcome back. Yeah, they just want to get all up in your business. Yeah. So let me see. That's, if I speak about the rest, I might be too long. Yeah, I think I could just talk about this quickly. So I was talking about the identity, right? Being able to get the identity of or the information of a person, and in the law, that's where we have to make a change in the act and stuff, so that we could put in actual identifiers in the information. So the information that we have there, we have the name of the voter and we have where they live, right? Oath. The people actually give an oath of identity. They don't show, it's an oath of identity. That is in the days, this was in the days when people didn't have ID cards. This was in the olden days, before before the modernization of things. People have passports and people have IDs and stuff. People didn't have all those IDs and so on in those days, so that's how the law was set. You could go there and everybody knows each other in the community, so you go there and oath of identity, put up your hand and say you are that person, and that is still what goes on. So this is what we need to change in there. We need to put identifiers in the information so that people can be identified, not just by I am this person and put up the right hand, but by actual identifiers, right? Let me see anything else. And this, I just wanted to mention something about that because I came across it and I wanted to say how we're so backward and we so do not do what we have to do in time, and we don't, make changes that we have to make. It's been years since the Carib Reserve has been changed to Kalinago territory, right? But on the laws and on the acts, on the Carib Reserve, we still have the Carib Reserve Act, right? They have not changed it to be the Kalinago Territory Act. It's still Carib Reserve Act. It's still called, all the words in there, we still have the word Carib in there. It's called a Carib chief and all those things. They have not changed it in the act, right? So we're not changing things where we're not making the changes, we're not doing anything, we're not changing anything, we're leaving everything. Just like how people I do not understand why Dominicans feel they should boast that if Christopher Columbus came back, Dominica would be the only place that he would identify. I mean, naturally speaking, maybe yes, because now everybody's going back to natural and want to see natural areas and whatever it is. But when we talk about all-time rules, I'm sure that Queen Elizabeth I, or whoever it was, whichever Queen Elizabeth that was alive when Dominica was discovered, that was alive when Dominica was the first becoming a colony and they were setting up. If that queen were to come back, she would come back and see the laws is exactly the same. There's nothing changed there. It's ridiculous, So people, we don't change anything, we don't update anything, we just leave everything as is. As is. Um, so now the House of Assembly Act, you look at it, I put that there because we want to look at the same point I'm making. We are not making changes on anything. The last, any sort of amendment, and it's not any big amendment, the last amendment was in 1990, right? 1990. 1990. 1990 was how many years ago? Very good. Very good. So we not change anything. We don't update any laws. We don't update anything in our systems. We just leave it as it is. Um, so I was the quality of that is really bad. Although I got it from the website, the Dominica or whatever website, they scanned it really bad. I mean, that's the best they could do. What I wanted to say about that, I cannot even remember what I was going to say about that. A person is disqualified from being registered as an elector if the person is found or declared to be a person of unsound mind. Um, if this person is undergoing a sentence of imprisonment in Dominica, in Dominica. If the person is under sentence of death imposed by him or in the Commonwealth or any sentence or imprisonment anywhere. Okay. If the person is under any written law disqualified for registration as an elector, a person registered pursuant to this part shall remain registered unless and until his name is deleted from the register. Because now they're not saying, no, they have to understand the law. The law doesn't say that it has to be removed because of whatever it is. It says that the person will be disqualified if it is removed for, and they're giving the reasons why your name can be removed from the list. So, okay, one, if you're dead, obviously, if you're dead, it has to be removed from the list. An objection to his registration has been allowed if he has been absent from Dominica for a period exceeding 5 years. Now, when you really read that, right, it does not say that if you're out of Dominica for a period a period exceeding 5 years, your name should be removed. What it says that it can be removed, saying that if it is removed for that reason, then that is a legitimate reason for it to be removed. But it didn't say that it should be removed when if you are living outside of Dominica for 5 years. So the law doesn't really say what we're saying that it says, right? However, people take it to mean that, and probably that is why there's this rift between what people think and what people think about people voting. If they're not there for 5 years, they can vote. If they're not there for longer than 5 years, they cannot vote, and all those things is because of the wording. We probably not properly or completely understand the words of the law, and that what it says, that it doesn't. Anyone can, the law is something that is based on interpretation and based on how you can interpret it, and based on how you can prove your understanding of it. It's like a debate. So what I see here is not that your name must be removed from the list if you live outside for more than 5 years. What it says is that you could be disqualified if your name is removed from the list for these reasons. That is a completely different thing. Yeah. So let's continue. Hi Inga. Hi Ed. Oh, my cousins are here. My cousins are here. And my sister is still here. Okay, so yeah. So I just wanted to raise that point. So okay, so I was just going through that, and again, the Registration of Electors Act, last amendment 1990, and I guess the change they made in 2018. Kitchen side, that change doesn't improve. That change doesn't improve the system. That change that they made in 2018, or was it 2017? For them to register people outside, that was just to benefit the party because there are a lot of voters outside. However, I believe that the United Workers Party should also take, and which they are doing, advantage of that change as well, so that they can ensure that their voters can also vote. But the problem and the difference between the United Workers Party and the government is that the government can afford to fly people to Dominica to vote, and that is where the contention is. Because I believe that most of the United Workers Party, the majority of United Workers Party supporters are overseas. And so overseas voting would probably be in the interest of United Workers Party. And even for people who are in Dominica for over 20 years, I think the Dominica, the United Workers Party would benefit more for people from people voting, um, Dominicans living outside of Dominica for whatever amount of time voting for them, because I believe there are a lot of United Workers Party supporters living outside of Dominica. A lot of them left because of victimization. A lot of them left because the opportunities that they had available to them when the party was in power were no longer available to them when the party is not in power, which is something that goes on and on in Dominica. When a party is in power, it doesn't matter which party. When a party is in power, the people get employed, the people get all the opportunities, and the other opposition party doesn't get. This is what happens all the time. It's not the right thing, but this is just what usually happens. And it needs to stop, but this is just the fact. Um, so where am I? Okay, so this is talking about treating and bribery. So in the laws, they're saying like a person who corruptly, and the thing is the law is something is interpretation too. So if the person doesn't consider themselves as doing it corruptly, that is one thing. They probably don't consider themselves doing it by himself or by any other person, either before, during, or after an election, directly or indirectly gives or provides or pays, or wholly or in part, the expense of giving or providing any food, drink, entertainment, or provision for any person for the purpose of corruptly influencing that person or any other person to vote, or to refrain from voting at the election, or on account that the person or any person having voted or refrained from the vote, whatever. So anyway, um, what this is saying, you see all those campaigns, that we having, where the government, where the parties bring people there, they give them food, they give them free entertainment, they bring foreign bands, foreign artists. All this is treating. And guess what? Both parties do it. But the difference is that one party has a lot of money and one party doesn't have money. And so the party with a lot of money does it. It's more blatant. It's grander than the other party that doesn't have money, right? But that's how they do it. And that I consider that as treating, because they're treating these people that suits the description of treating. It may not be considered bribery, but it's treating, because they are coming there, they're coming this taking you there to tell you why to vote for them, to tell you to vote for us, and they're giving you food, they're giving you the music that you want, they're giving you rum, they're providing the bus for you to come. So it's like, that is treating. According to the laws, all those things that happen, all those big things that happen on this campaign, that's supposed to be legal, right? But we are not enforcing laws in Dominica, so we keep doing it, and it's just going to be a part of us, right? So that's treating. And there was bribery, talking about bribery up there, but my slides got mixed up. So there's bribery. Definition of bribery: every person who directly or indirectly, by himself or by any other person on his behalf, gives, lends, or agrees to give or lend or offer, promises to procure or to endeavor to procure any money. And that line is blank. Any person, so that line is blank, but it's the same thing. The difference is, in order to induce the elector to vote or to refrain from voting. It's the same, almost the same thing. But I know for sure those campaigns, they count under treating, and um we have been taking part in that like it's a normal thing, and it's legal, and it's not legal. All those of okay, I just got a little disturbance there. Um, so I think we're at the end of the rope. Uh, okay, I've seen this. We've seen this already, and then the last thing I wanted to see was just about international standards. We just look at the international standards. Whoa, what happened to my? Oh, oh man, what's the matter? Okay, let me see if I can fix that. Um, I just want to see if I can fix that for a second. Okay. Who is on? I can't see the names. I know somebody else just joined us, but I can't see the names. Let me just make. Okay, I think we're good. All right. So I think the order of my slide also changed. Okay, so we're looking at international standards. That is the declaration on criteria for free and fair elections. That is based on international standards, developed by the Interparliamentary Council since 1994. So this is what they consider as free and fair elections. In any state, the authority of the government can only derive from the will of the people as expressed in genuine, free and fair elections and held at, wait a while, you're probably not going to see my face for a minute when I just get to see that, okay? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna hide my face for a second. Okay, so fair elections held at regular intervals on the basis of universal, equal, and secret votes, right? Voting and election rights. Now the thing is with Dominica, all those standard international standard things like people being free to vote, people being free to vote who they want, people not having to tell people who they vote or else face any consequences based on who they vote. Those things, people being free to take part in whatever political activities that they want to, I guess, except the public workers. Um, you know, we have all those things, but there are other things that are missing, and these are the things that nobody wants to fix. These are the things that the government refuses to fix, the things that the government has no political will to fix. So things like voting and electoral rights, where every adult citizen has the right to vote, on a non-discriminatory basis. Every adult citizen has the right to access to an effective, impartial, and non-discriminatory procedure for the registration of voters. No people register freely. No eligible citizen shall be denied the right to vote or disqualified from registration as a voter, otherwise than in accordance with objectively verifiable criteria prescribed by law, and provided that the what was it? Let me see. And provide, okay, it's cut off. That's the end of the sentence, but you know what it's saying. Every individual who is denied the right to vote to be registered as a voter shall be entitled an appeal, right? So these things, with the Dominica doesn't have a problem with those things, right? The rights and responsibility. The problem we have is the right where the rights and the responsibilities of the state comes in, right? The state should take the necessary legislative steps and other measures in accordance with their constitutional process to guarantee the rights and institutional framework for periodic and genuine, free and fair elections, right? In accordance with their obligations under international law. In particular, states should establish an effective, impartial, and non-discriminatory procedure for registration of voters, right? The registration is quite fine, but as I'm saying, we need to have some type of identification, so it can be effective. I think the impartial and non-discriminatory part, we don't have a problem with that, but the effectiveness part is a problem. Establish clear criteria for the registration of voters, and we need to establish that all the ambiguity we have in this law, all the things that we are unsure of and we are debating about it, we need to have it. We need to be able to understand and explain, and everybody to have the right understanding of exactly what this means, right? So for the registration of voters, such as age, citizenship, and residence, we need that clear. We need that also amended so that everybody who is a Dominican citizen, where no matter where he lives, should be able to vote, and ensure that provisions are applied without distinction of any kind. Provide for the formation of free functioning political parties, possibly regulate the funding of political parties and electoral campaigns. We are not doing that, and this is one of the things internationally we're supposed to be doing. That is one of the international standards that we are asking the government to implement. Ensure the separation of party and state. And this is the problem. We do not have a separation between party and state because Dominica Labour Party is the government and the government is Dominica Labour Party. It appears that the money of the Dominica government is also the money of the Dominica Labour Party. So this, based on the international standards of what the state's responsibilities are, Dominica is not performing its responsibilities. The government is not doing what they're supposed to do in order to comply with international standards. Initiate or facilitate national programs of civic education. Talk. They'll just make it into a talk shop, and I guess they're probably doing that because they have a lot of talk shops, and it's just talking. And the population is still not familiar with those election procedures. In addition, states should take necessary policy and institutional steps to ensure the progressive achievement and consolidation of democratic goals, including the establishment of a neutral mechanism for the management of elections. And we're talking about the Electoral Commission. And as I was saying, the Electoral Commission should be neutral. It shouldn't be workers and labor. It shouldn't be two government. We should have people that have principles and are able to put their political affiliations aside and be professionals. And we should be able to expect and demand it from professionals in those areas. Ensure that those responsible for the various aspects of election are trained and act impartially, and that coherent voting procedures are established and made known to the voting public. Ensure the registration of voters, updating of electoral rolls, and balloting procedures with the assistance of national and international observers are appropriate. Ensure the registrators and updating of electoral rolls. So we need to be they need to be updating the lists. Now they say that every September they publish the names of the registered voters. That means they have they give an update of the list. But do they actually update the list? No, they don't. So they just keep on publishing the same list over and over and over again. I mean, with the exception of the few dead people that are removed from the list every year, every September they have the same thing, but they're supposed to be updating the list based on the international standards that they should be complying with. Okay, so ensure that encourage parties, candidates, and the media to accept and adopt a code of conduct to govern the election campaign and polling period. Ensure the integrity of the ballot through appropriate measures to prevent multiple voting or voting by those not entitled thereto. And this is what we're talking about, the voters, the identification and cleaning up the list. All that is part of what you're supposed to be doing. That's your responsibilities as a state to comply with international standards. So we're not asking you to do what you're not supposed to do or something that is not your job or anything extra. We're asking you to just do what you're supposed to do. Ensure the integrity of the process for counting votes. I cannot talk on that because I don't know. States shall respect and ensure the human rights of all individuals within their territory and subject to their jurisdiction. In time of elections, the states and its organs should therefore ensure that freedom of movement, okay, there's freedom of movement in Dominica, people can go to their political rallies as they please. Parties and candidates are free to communicate their views to the electorate. We have that. People are free to communicate their views. We don't have a problem with this part. That the necessary steps are taken to guarantee non-partisan coverage in state and public service media. This is something we also need to. We also need that kind of impartiality in terms of the media and the public service media, the DBS the GIS and all those things, they should be able to be non-partisan, and they should be able to represent Dominicans in terms of everybody and not just a political party. Um, So these are the things that enjoy to ensure the parties and candidates enjoy reasonable opportunities to present their electoral platform. That's fine without problem with that. People can do whatever they want in terms of that. States should take all necessary appropriate measures to ensure that the principle of secret ballot is represented. We have that without a problem with secret ballot. You don't need to tell anybody who you voted for, unless you actually want to. Ensure the transparency of the electoral process. For example, where's now? Mm, okay. So with the rest of the things, it is the electoral violence. We don't really have that. We don't have that. I mean, we don't have electoral violence. Ensure human rights and complete electoral processes are determined promptly. Um, so we don't really have problems with those other things, but we do have problems with some of the expectations and the responsibilities of the government, and not the political party, because the government the Dominican Labour Party should be able to separate itself from the government. I'm not saying that has to be easy, but they need to be able to do that. Um, so we don't have much problems with those things. Candidature, party, and campaign rights and responsibilities. I think we're okay with that. People can express their political opinion, they can do what they want. People are free. In terms of that, Dominica's elections is free and fair in terms of that. But what I have highlighted, what I've highlighted here shows what we need to actually pay attention to and what needs to change. So I think this was a very long live. I wanted to make it very informative, and I wanted to put a lot of facts in there. I really didn't want to just come and talk and say my opinion without things to back it up. I really would like to give like an overall view of the entire situation and have a discussion based on the entire situation as a whole. This is something that I've wanted to do for a while, and so I have done it. So yay. Um, so right now, I guess we are at the end of our broadcast, and I appreciate your presence. The people who are on right now, I appreciate. Hi, Lexi. Hi. You're a little late, but you're here. Thanks. So so we will be talking about. I'm not exactly sure what our topic will be next time, but we'll be talking about something just as interesting or even more interesting next time. I appreciate your presence here with me, and I wish you a good night, and I hope you have a good week. See you next week on Outside the Box. Thank you and good night.